In this lesson, we're going to look at issuing and transferring materials. After completing this lesson, you should be able to identify the different inventory transaction types, explain the difference between a transaction with and without documents, create a miscellaneous transaction, create a sub-inventory transfer, create and process a movement request, and perform a direct and indirect inter-org transfer. So let's look at the big picture. There are a couple different types of material flows and business flows. There are inventory transactions where material is moved in and out of inventory. You can move material around. You can change its sub-inventory location, track the cost of the item. Depending on how you set up your sub-inventories, the costing might even change. We can bring things in the back door, put them away, shuffle them around, pick back and ship them out the back door. We can also issue things into manufacturing. So when we look at the business flow, we have movement of material from inventory to the shop floor and back in. From purchasing, we normally just do receipts, but we could return something to the supplier. And of course, our favorite is order management, because if we pick, pack, and ship it, then we can charge the customer and hopefully make lots of money. Here's an example of the different types of transactions. If we start at the top with the miscellaneous receipt, that is material that is going into stock. It's going to increase our inventory valuation and it's going to be charged. I guess it'll debit or credit a GL account. Anyway, the dollars are going to go down whatever the GL account is coming off of. If you issue material with a miscellaneous issue, our inventory valuation is going to go down and dollars are going to go onto a GL account code. Maybe it's engineering, trade show, could be scrap. The sub-inventory transfer moves it between sub-inventories or locators. You can consolidate. And then the inter-org transfer, you can move material between orgs, and you can do it in one step where you just directly transact the material from one place to another, or you can do it indirect where it needs to be received in the second org. You can do the transactions with or without documentation. So a miscellaneous issue, dollars are going out the back door, hitting the GL account code. Miscellaneous receipt, material coming in, the documented process would be a PO receipt or a transfer order receipt. The sub-inventory transfer can be done with a movement request sub-inventory transfer. Your inter-org transfer can be done with the transfer order shipment and similarly the receipt. I'm a fan of doing things with the documents. That way there's a paper trail and approvals and at least two sets of eyes on things. The system does respect any controls you have on your materials. So if you have locator control, it will respect where you say you want to put the material, or at minimum, record the locator. If you're doing lot serial control, it will track those on all the transactions. The current revision is what will default, but you can store and transact older revisions of things. If you've set up restrictions at the sub-inventory locator level, it will respect that. You may be in an industry where you have certain things that happen. We had paints and other chemicals that had to go into cabinets that are fire. We had adhesives that would go into cold storage. If you're dealing with exotic materials, sometimes those have trolled. So lots of things there. If you've set up dual units of measure, it'll track that. And if you are leveraging the material statuses, it respects those for the transactions you're going to do. So let's talk more specifically about a miscellaneous transaction. So a miscellaneous can have a lot of paperwork associated or documentation associated to it. The miscellaneous receipt, the material is coming into stock, and your inventory valuation will go up, and it will be charged against it. If you issue material, your inventory valuation will go down, and the account will be charged. You can also leverage the account issue. Those are generally selling side of the house, and they give you a common phrase like scrap or issue to engineering, something along those lines. And all the user has to do is choose whether they're going to do an issue or receipt, choose the right thing, and the accounting's done on the backside. Previously about account aliases, those are generally set up on the operations side, and they do the same thing. They give you that ability to say, hey, this is what we're doing, and you don't have to worry about the account. I generally do not encourage using miscellaneous transactions to do stock adjustments. A better option is I prefer seeing items put onto a cycle count, having it go through that process to make the adjustment, because if you have auditors come in and they say, see a cycle count adjustment, there's far fewer questions, unless the same item gets cycle counted over and over and over. Or have auditors come in and look at things, then you can use your miscellaneous transactions. You can set up default stocking units of measure for material transactions. That'll speed the process up when people are doing transactions, put that information onto the transaction line, and hopefully reduce errors. All right, let's go into the app and we'll walk through the practice for a miscellaneous inventory transaction. Next up is sub-inventory transfers and just some transformation information in general. A sub-inventory transfer moves material between sub-inventories, and you can use it to consolidate indicators within a sub-inventory. So if you have the need where you need to move material from maybe a bulk location, or you could even go from a pallet area to break down the pallet into cases, from cases down to eaches if you're doing distribution. So lots of different ways you can do it, lots of different reasons you may want to do. So a sub-inventory transfer is easily done within the UI, no paperwork. Where do I want to take it from, which is the source? Where do I want it to go? How many am I going to move done? You can also do it with a movement request, and that will add a picking step. Those can be generated in the UI also from a min-max replenishment or a pick wave transfer, where you have movement between organizations or companies, receiving step. And the last one there at the bottom, the transfer order, aka the internal material transfer. Those can be done within an org, between orgs, and between companies within your enterprise. There is a fulfillment process that can run them and manage those and initiate those, so through supply chain orchestration. And you have the receiving step. So you can be min-max replenishment can initiate that, or from the planning engine. This is a hand, or even grab a screenshot and print out. And I think there's a copy of this out at docs.oracle.com. But it's nice because it gives you the different types of transactions that you may use and or do for different business reasons. So the sub-inventory transfer, inter-org transfers, and internal material transfers. And then the different steps that may be part of that process and where it's applicable. And speaking of more details on those. So a movement request can be created with the UI or can be generated in the system. You can run the pick request, basically move the material, and then confirm if it's going out the back door. You can do the confirm pick slips. Documents the process with the request in the system and triggers the warehouse or the facility, whomever's doing the replenishment. Will relocate the material, do the pick pack ship depending on what it is. Movement request manually created or automatically depending on the source. So we talked about min-max or from planning or from the orchestration. Generally, the movement request is org, and if it's going to go between orgs, then it's considered a transfer order. So the movement request creation can happen automatically or manually. Position movement request type is when a requester goes in, puts in the requisition movement request to create the movement request, and that will generally move material between to an issue to a GL account code. Replenishment is from the min-max side of things, and that will then generate the process. Remember, the pick release is where the system will go in, look at the rules, and say, we need to pull this material for this particular order. Depending on your business process, you can fully automate the pick release to do everything in one fell swoop, or you can manually have the pick confirm process, physically grab the material, it goes in and says, this material is for this order, based on the documentation I have or the task I have, handheld device. Based on how you've got your setups done, you can do overpicking. You may have things that it makes sense to just, if I have items and they are in cases, you may want to move them in cases. So you may want to give somebody the flexibility there. Or if you have things that are done in feet, but they come in sticks, you don't want to have to cut anything. So it's a nice thing about the overpicking tolerances. Transactions are supported with the REST services, and you can also view the open pick and the REST resource. Here's some more details on the movement request sourcing, source types. So you have the movement request, which is the requisition movement request to manually generate and move the material from to issue it out to a GL account code, easy for me to say, or you can use it to do the sub-inventory transfer. Next is the replenishment movement. That generally comes from your min-max or par location replenishment. but most of the time it's min-max, automatically generated, may or may not create a pick list depending on how you want to do things. And you can do the pick confirm, and really from a sales order or transfer order, automatically generated, creates the pick list, and you can do the pick confirm. Also, this is supported with the Manage Pick Waves REST service. Picking rules are important. It tells the system how to go pick the material. You can set it up so you can have customers or certain criteria to pick a single lot for an order. So you may have customers that say, don't mix lots, I just want a lot. You can do things based on lot shelf life remaining days. So pull the earliest expiration out and ship that. First in, first out. As field goes, you can set it up to do partial picks. If that makes sense, you can say pick the oldest revision material and ship that out. You can do it based on sub-inventory locator. So there's lots of options to define how you want the picks done throughout the warehouse. There is also a print movement request pick slip profile, and it releases report, generate your picks. So we have a demo for the creation of a movement request plus a practice to create and process a movement request. I combine those two into one. So let's go take a look. In this next section, we're going to talk about direct and org transfers. When we look at inter-org transfers, that means we're moving between inventory organizations. So the direct shipment process, a transaction in the source org, and the material shows up in the destination org. One thing to consider is when you're transferring items under dual unit of measure control between orgs, the system honors the unit of measure conversion of the destination organization and could potentially recalculate the secondary quantity for the item if the conversion differs between the shipping org and the destination org. The system will always process transaction quantities in the primary unit of measure. You must define unit of measure conversions in both the shipping and the destination for the system can process the transaction. If you're using the in-transit method, or if that's how you've set the system up and you perform the transfer transaction in the source organization, the item goes into in-transit, and on the other end, then it goes into the destination organization's stock. Note to self, if you are using somebody needs to keep an eye on the in-transit account just to audit it, check it once a month, just to make sure that you don't want sitting out there. Internal material transfers allow you to move material between organizations and in intercompany within your enterprise, related from the planning engine, inventory replenishments, back-to-back orders, or they can be initiated by an internal requisition or even a spreadsheet uploaded. It will respect any rules that you've written. You do have end-to-end visibility throughout the process. If you have any pricing and markups, it will honor that. You can do returns. You can you can transfer from an inventory stock location to an expense location. So it's very, very flexible. If you have, you can cancel, use the mass cancel transfer order. So if there's an insufficient quantity to transfer a request, a back order shortage condition could result, and you may not want to transfer a request, you can use the new process to strategically select and cancel or kill remaining quantities on partially fulfilled transfer. Again, if you're using automated fulfillment, you can cancel partially filled jobs or transfer orders. You can also enable the substitute items during pick release transfer orders. So if you have substitutes defined with when you run the transfer order created, if the substitute is allowed and defined, then you can have the fulfillment done with the substitute item. When the system creates requisition lines for internal transfers, item come within a destination organization. You can use that for the intra-org transfers. If you are moving between orgs, then it's going to do an inter-org transfer. If you're leveraging the requisition once it's approved, then supply chain orchestration will do the fulfillment. User visibility as a normal requisition. They can see where it's at, where it's been shipped. You can also perform some minor updates, and you can request cancellations on those lines. You catch them early enough. The order for expense destination can be subject to budgetary control, if you would like, and encumbrance accounting. Upon shipping the transfer order, the actual receipt at the destination may or may not be required. If a receipt is required, you can use the self-service to capture that information, or you can run it through the warehouse. It just depends on your business process. Upon shipment or delivery, depending on whether or costing is performed, and new enhancement where cost management will see new features to allow multiple accounting distributions as well as the budgetary and encumbrance accounting for your requisitions that are sourced from internal material transfers. If you are a warehouse personnel person, somebody working in the warehouse, and you have the appropriate privileges, you can create internal transfers directly from the Manage Item Quantities page. It has an option to create the transfer orders. When this action is selected, the Create Supply Request page is initiated, allowing entry of the transfer order details that are fed directly into supply chain orchestration. This provides a simple method for creating ad hoc internal material transfers outside of the normal. So we have a demo of creating an inter-org transfer, but before we go, let's talk about some case studies or use cases. So this first one, Company A, their shop floor personnel indicates to the warehouse personnel when additional components are needed to fulfill work orders due to rejects or scraps. So the best way to do that is a movement request. The sub-inventory transfer will not meet the requirements in this case, given the needs for the request and the pick transaction executed by two different job roles. A movement request can also deliver components directly order when required. Next up, Company B moves material between a number of city locations, which are modeled as within a single inventory org. Material transfer, which is going to be an inter-org movement of material, so the movement request will not meet the requirements in this case despite supporting picking, a shipping transaction, and also considering the shipping lead time and receipt at the destination required. And finally, this is moving material between distribution center in Netherlands, local warehouses, multiple European countries. So it's going between organizations. So the internal material transfer is needed for that because you're going from one business to another or business unit to another different country. So there are things in the background that have to be done. You have to have the proper accounting, pricing agreements, trade distributions, and company payables and receivables, and the taxes. Because as we know, if things go across borders, everybody wants their euro. So let's summarize real quick before we go do that inter-org transfer. So we talked about different inventory transactions, the difference between documentation and non-documented transactions, a chance to create a miscellaneous action, some inventory transfer, boom request, and an inter-org transfer. So let's go do that Let's take a look at an inter-org transfer. So I pulled up a number, which is in 3 different orgs, and we're going to pretend that they need 5002, and we're going to send them from 001. So let's go create the inter-org transfer. So we'll go to tasks, and we want to create an inter-org transfer, or I want to create one. And it's going to go from, see upper right, we're in 001. We're going to send it to 002 Atlanta. And in transit, can generate a shipment number. And I can put a source in here. A waybill number, carrier. I guess there's no pigeon, so we'll just use FedEx. Number of packages 1. Hit the little populate the part number. Pull the items from, got 19 of them sitting in there. And destination, we're going to put them into stores. Quantity 5. Don't need a reason, but we could put it in if we wanted to. If this item has lot serial information, we could pop that, click on the edit details. You can see lots of additional information. So if there's lot serial number we needed to capture, we could, or we could go to view, add that information up here. But I think we're good to go. So we're going to click submit. And because this is in transit, I have the ability to do a receipt on the other end. Transaction was processed with no issues. Yay. That. So now if we go back, quantities, in there, all ordered. This one's down to 14. This one still has 20, and there's 5 inbound.